Devon Larratt, professional arm wrestler.
Professional arm wrestler.
Is there even such a thing, right?
Well, I think there is.
There
now.
is.
There clearly is.
Yeah, that's right.
Is. You're internationally recognized. People know you in the sport. People follow you online. And we've heard that you are hosting a regional Ontario-wide and potentially expanding event promoting arm wrestling, mainly with children. You want to get them involved in the sport. And it's obviously associated with Freedom Mobile, your sponsor. Which, by the way, I just got a new phone.
That's a smart move.
With Freedom.
That's a smart move,
brother.
man.
I swear to God.
There you go.
So tell us about the event, please.
Right.
About your camp.
Yeah. So a lot of countries around the world are kind of getting ahead of us, right? They're having children put into their sports programs, arm wrestling. They're starting arm wrestling from a young age. And there is a big difference when you do anything from a young age, right? Like when you do a sport through puberty, the changes that happen, they're amazing. I mean, everything you do is instinctive, you're faster. So that's what we want to do here in Canada. We want to set up the future so that Canada remains to be a strong arm wrestling nation in the world. So Freedom is letting me go across. Well, we're going to start regionally, so lots in Ontario. We're going to go up north, across Canada, hopefully eventually here, and we are going to do a ton of youth development for arm wrestling.
Wow, that's fantastic. I think people are really enthusiastic about having that opportunity. Kids learning arm wrestling, as you mentioned, learning the sport at a young age is key. We see that in amateur sports. For combat sports, be it judo, Greco-Roman, freestyle wrestling, you know, you got to start them young, right? You have to orient them at a young age into the sport. Now, please elaborate, as someone who's attained at the highest level of your respective sport, which is arm wrestling, what does it take to compete at that level of competition?
Well, I think that the first thing with any life choice is you gotta really enjoy what you're doing, right? Like you really have to see the light in it and find enjoyment with it, because there's gonna be those times when you're gonna need motivation, right? And if you don't love what you're doing, you're eventually gonna fall off the tracks. So I think that the first thing that I have to do is show people how much fun it is. You know, I have to show people how great it is just to get together and arm wrestle with people, because it's a great sport. It's lots of fun. Once you have that, you have to train properly. You have to train safely. You have to build a practice schedule so that you're able to take those steps. You have to plug into a system, you know, that allows you to progress step by step by step, all the way to the world championships, you know?
Right,
Yeah.
right. As a competitor, tell us, where are you at currently in terms of competition, and how does it feel to be where you are?
Right, so...
Oh, you're
that's me.
He got first
I got
place.
first. That's where I'm at right now.
There you go. That's the
where I'm
answer.
sitting.
Isn't that the answer?
So that's the answer. No, I'm good. Okay, so right now I am the current world champion of the World Armwrestling League, both right and left hands. And that feels fantastic.
And that's global.
Yeah, well, okay, so right now we are all in North America. We are most of Europe, Scandinavia, and Oceania.
Okay.
Every year we've expanded. Okay, so we are not quite yet the entire planet, but we're getting closer every single year, and that's the goal. This is the largest league in the world, largest organized league. And I've been arm wrestling since I was a kid, and it's been great to watch the sport get bigger and bigger and bigger. So right now, we've never been highlighted so much. We're on ESPN live this year. This is the first time we've been live on ESPN.
That's huge.
It is. It's amazing. We're going to be on CBS next week with the NFL. We are going to be, hopefully, getting on Canadian television.
Seriously, Canadian
Wake
television.
up, Canada.
CBC, where you at?
What's up?
Where are you at?
TSN Sports.
Come on.
We got to get on board, right?
Big time, big
okay,
time.
So arm wrestling's in a great place right now. So I'm coming up to that World Finals, which is in Vegas on the 29th of June. Okay, so the way they do it is like you got to get a certain amount of points, and this was a qualifying tournament here today. So easy day, really, just, you know, quick stretch out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What aspect, now, I heard an interview with you on Devin Nicholson. Obviously, he runs Great North Wrestling, great podcast.
Love the guy.
Video series, awesome series, great interviews.
Yeah.
Where you, in that interview, spoke about this sport of arm wrestling as a combat sport.
It is.
And you got a little enthusiastic and passionate as you were explaining that. I've never been to this is my first event ever, and I got to tell you, it's pretty intense here. It's a very intense vibe. Obviously, it's at a bar, a great bar, Grace O'Malley's East. But the vibe, there's a competitive fire in the air. How is this sport a combat sport, in your opinion, sir?
You know, the thing that makes it a combat sport is the complexity of the hand, you know? Like, when you look at your hand and your wrist, there are so many pressures that you can do. And the neat thing is the pressures counter each other. There's retreats, there's counters, and listen, they're straight up being strong too. Like, I mean, don't think that being strong isn't an asset, but being real savvy and smart and be able to move and adjust and be flexible, that's going to take you a long, long way as well. Lots of different styles in arm wrestling, lots of branches. You know, you have inside styles, outside styles, you have flop-wristed styles, you have styles in the straps. You have guys who are quick hitters. You have guys who are catchers and guys who try and, you know, prolong matches and make it about endurance. Everybody has a gift, and we see champions of all different shapes and sizes. Guys come in, they're like, am I built for arm wrestling? Yeah, everybody's built for arm wrestling, you know? You just got to learn to use what you got.
Right.
Yeah.
You served in the Canadian Armed Forces, and you know, as a citizen, thank you for serving us Canadians. It's obviously, you know, greatly appreciated.
Well, it's a lot of fun. So.
Well, that's great to hear. I'd like to know, as someone who served obviously in the Special Forces, what advantages do you have as an athlete beyond the physical? Speak on the mental game involved in this sport, well, because I know just from my general understanding of any sport, there's a huge mental aspect to it, right? There's huge aspects of sports psychology where high elite level athletes or anyone at the elite level, if you know what I'm saying, the mental aspect plays a key role. Does that apply to this sport of arm wrestling?
Yeah, of course it does. So, I mean, there's no real higher stakes thing out there, you know, when you talk about, you know, combatives than war, really. I mean,
it's the realest of the realest.
It's real, right? Like, I mean, that's a real thing.
Right.
And I remember growing up, my father used to sit at the table and he'd say, all sport is a derivative from war.
Interesting.
We do sport so that we can, in a friendly setting, you know, practice combatives, and war is the highest level of combat, you know. Like,
sure.
And but the thing is, you know, when we play sports, we kind of, you know, filter it down into its elements. But what war is always looking for is expanding, right? Like, use any means necessary for the most part. I mean, obviously there's rules that soldiers operate by, but the concept of war is very large. And when you can really wrap your mind around stuff like that, all the concepts used in war, they're all completely applicable to sport. And you can actually try and expand your sport by knowing these concepts, right? Like things that you know, a standard athlete might not take into consideration. You can make the game bigger. You know, there's gray areas in every activity.
There sure is. What happens when you're about to face an opponent that you know is about to push you to the extreme? Elaborate as to how you feel, what you think, what you see, what you hear in that. So, I mean, I watched you compete today.
But today's pretty chill, you know?
Well, yeah, you're chilling out there. But I'd like to know in situations where you're clearly being challenged.
Yeah.
What's the inner dialogue here?
Well, you know, for me, it's a big part of what I live for. I mean, I love my family, you know, but so much of my life is dedicated to the sport. You know, it's dedicated to those small moments. You know, it's I try and put everything into that instant where I'm competing in the finals. You know, it's what I've worked my whole year for. So things are very condensed. And it's changed a lot for me over the years. I used to try and go somewhere or get to some place mentally, and now I really try and just be as present as possible and face each person as something that I try and know as much about as possible. So everybody's unique. So I really try and study my opponents, and I try and have a game plan, and I do the small things that make a difference. You know, I focus on my breathing.
Wow. Okay.
You know, I try and control the crowd, and I try and control my opponent, you know, at least a little bit mentally and psychologically before the physical stuff comes into play. Because a lot of the physical stuff is so rehearsed, you know, like I've been arm wrestling competitively now for over 20 years. And I mean, it's most of what I do is I competitively arm wrestle. I train for it every day, multiple times a day. So there's stuff that you can control, and then there's stuff that you just gotta let fly, and that's the greatest feeling. The stuff that you can just go full out as hard as you can and not have any worries or any repercussions for anything you do. Just hit your instincts as hard as you can. That's what I love about the final stage. Just letting go completely. You know?
Even if it's for like 2 seconds or
It's more than that. It's a dance that, you know, you start to filter in. And by the time, I mean, when you dream about something for a year, you know, like I've been dreaming about the finals that are coming up in June for a year. I've been thinking about it, you know, every day I'm thinking about what I'm gonna do, and I see the guys in front of me, and so by the time it's even close, I've seen it, and everything just starts playing out in front of me, you know, and I'm there, and I'm the director, you know.
So you're visualizing.
I love
actively.
it. I love it. It's my favorite time of year. Finals. Yeah.
Man, you're a very passionate individual, and while I was watching you up there, you know, competing, slightly before I noticed you got into it. You got into the mode.
Steve's a serious guy. I mean, when I first started the sport, Steve would beat me. Steve's been around a long time. The neat thing about Steve Marneau is, you know, you're good when the sport changes a rule because of you. All right? Steve's one of those guys. They made it used to be, so arm wrestling's got a midline.
Okay.
And so your shoulder is not allowed to cross the center line of the table. And that's because of Steve. Steve and a guy, Sylvain Perron, had like a 15-minute match at the Nationals like 20 years ago. And so they said, yeah, okay, your shoulder's not allowed to cross the center line anymore.
So, and that established the rule.
Yeah.
Quick question. I saw I don't know if it was Steve is the gentleman you competed against.
That's right.
Yes. I saw a gentleman with, I think like he wore special shoes.
Yeah. Dan Bellafay.
Yes. Is that, and I'm, full disclosure here, I don't follow and I'm not very familiar with the rules, but I'd like to
That's all
follow.
legal.
That's legal.
That's totally legal.
So does that mean, because you're 6'5", you're a tall guy.
Right.
Does that mean you could wear? I'm referring to these boots that these shoes.
I know
that
exactly what you're talking about.
I believe 3 or 4 inches of advantage.
For me, it's not going to help me so much.
But you have long reach.
I do. So for me, it's not required. In arm wrestling, you kind of want to have your center line, like your belly button. You want to have your belly button over top of the table. Okay. So when you're arm wrestling, you don't want to be kind of down, because it kind of stops you from being able to get behind your arm properly and push. Okay, which is like half of arm wrestling. There's pushing and there's pulling. So a guy who is not able to like get behind his arm properly is at a technical, you know, he's technically more limited. So by wearing these shoes, it just kind of opens up the playing field for him. And
Interesting.
It's totally accepted, and guys think that, you know, if I was coaching a shorter arm wrestler, I would encourage them to either get shoes like that or get a platform. That's allowed too.
Okay.
Yeah, you can use platforms, anything to bring you up.
Fascinating.
Yeah. But for me, I don't need it. I need a pit that I can jump in, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Right,
because you got to get low too.
Right. Now I noticed with the last one you had with Steve, you got low.
Yeah,
you got low,
and you can do both. You can get low, you can get high. Both. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about arm wrestling is the more you get into it, you see that there's so many choices, many choices.
Well, you're 3 months away from June in Vegas.
Yeah.
We will be following your story.
Good.
We look forward to this journey for you as a competitor, and we also look forward to this awesome event that you're having to promote the sport of arm wrestling, particularly within the young demographic of practitioners. I think the region, the province, and the country needs this to promote the sport, and we'd like to thank your sponsor.
Thank you,
Freedom Mobile. All the best to you, sir, in June, and we will be tracking. We look forward to it.
Right on.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.